Welcome to Inside the Mavs, the official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak. Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me here on Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. Make sure you download and subscribe to the Inside the Mavs podcast wherever you get podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. You can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Make sure you like and comment on this video as well. Our Mavericks trade deadline primer, if you will. I'm so excited with my guest today. He is world renowned for the Locked On Mavericks podcast. He is an authority when it comes to all things Dallas Mavericks. He is the Locked On Mavericks host and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Network for the NBA. He is Nick Angstadt. Nick, what's going on?
Good, ask them. I'm just a coach.
This is one of the reasons why I was so excited to have you on, because I knew drops were coming. Drops were definitely coming for today's show.
Oh,
you already provided some.
Kevin, I'm lost. I'm not used to being here. I'm in a different channel. I'm in a different podcast feed. Where am I?
You are in an alternative universe is where you are right now. So welcome. We appreciate you joining us here on the show today. And it's funny, we were talking before we got on. You do this every day, like literally every day, talking about this team. And through 50 games, because we're going to get into some of the names that potentially the Mavericks could be, interested in acquiring, what they may need to send out in order to acquire certain pieces. But before we get there, this team is 27-23 through 50 games in this season. And you look at the Jason Kidd era so far, 29-21 in year one, 26-24 in year two, now 27-23 in year three through 50 games. Where are your feelings with this team right now as they continue their East Coast road trip as we head toward the All-Star break?
Yeah, my feelings are, I just hope that they make some kind of move, and I hope that they push it forward, and I hope they don't cave to the, we're good enough because we'll get these guys back from injury and it'll be fine, right? Like that's where the trepidation of, all right, I hope they don't just hold off and not make some kind of a move, but they are kind of limited in some of the assets, and we'll talk about some of those and some of the things it'll take to get some of these players, but like they still got to move forward. And I don't think that you can just waste another Luka year if you're just saying, all right, well, let's figure out who of these players is good enough. Like, I don't know, man. The West seems a little wide open to me. Some of those teams at the top, I think, are very beatable. I think the Mavs can beat them if they get into it, if they add enough pieces to this. And so that's where I am with them right now.
Yeah, the top of the West, when you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, obviously the reigning champion Denver Nuggets, the Clippers have probably been the best team in the league since about mid-November. They've been crushing everything in their path, it seems like, over the last, 40-some-odd games. And the Mavericks, it's just, they have not been able to have the kind of health and continuity that you would want to see based on the starting lineup that we thought we were going to see at the beginning of the season. And I think for you and I and folks who cover this team and watch this team, we just want to see this team with what they look like fully formed, and then maybe try to get a better evaluation for what they are going from there. Even if they don't make a move, what will this team look like once they actually get healthy going forward for the rest of the year?
18 games. We've seen 18 games of Luka, Kyrie, and Lively. 18 out of 50. Yeah. That's not enough. It's not enough games to know what the team is, to have chemistry with a rookie, even though Luka already seems to have it. Like, to know what you are it's just not enough games to see it. And so the injuries are definitely a big issue, and it's been a big problem for this team. There was that stat that I posted the other day from Zach Lowe that said there are 3 teams in the NBA that have not had a single 5-man lineup play 100 minutes. The Memphis Grizzlies, who have been injured to hell, the Charlotte Hornets, who are just bad, and the Dallas Mavericks have not had one single 5-man unit hit 100 minutes. Like, that's just a level of lack of continuity that you just don't see very often in the NBA. And for the Mavs to have a winning record like this with the injuries, like, it's kind of impressive in a way, even though there have been several losses that we've been really furious about and frustrated about. They should be better than they are right now. They've underperformed in some ways. They've overperformed because of their injuries and like availability and all that.
And they were able to get one of those wins last night in Philadelphia, because I thought the Mavs may be headed to one of those bad losses. No Joel Embiid.
Same.
Tyrese Maxey, he was in early foul trouble, but they were able to find a way, especially in the second half where they, especially in the fourth quarter, they hit 7 3-pointers, just a barrage of threes in the second half. And I tweeted out after the game, I said, look, man, when this team knocks down threes, they are devastatingly good. when they don't hit threes, this team is devastatingly bad. And you saw the conversion, regardless of, I don't know if this word, regardless of Tim Hardaway Jr. Irregardless. I don't know. It sounded good before. I was like, no, I don't know if that's
a prefix that needs to go in somewhere there.
Exactly. That's what it felt like it needed to happen there. But this team was able to still knock down 3-pointers with certain guys not being able to knock down shots. Shout out to Josh Green, and we'll get into him throughout the course of the show because he's been playing really well. And look, when he's been in the starting lineup, you've seen how Josh Green has felt much more comfortable there. He's knocking down a bunch of corner threes, and it feels like he's playing at a much better rate given what they thought he was going to give them once he signed his contract extension.
Yeah, he seemed to have turned a little bit of a corner. A lot of these games recently have come with him starting, and so I'm curious if he's, just feels better as a starter, and if that's something that Jason Kidd wants to turn to. The other starters have not necessarily fared that much better, in the starting lineup. And so maybe they found something with Josh. The last night's game against the Sixers was maybe one of the first games we've seen Josh Green play really well with Luka and Kyrie both playing. Like that just doesn't happen very often. And so maybe he's finding his way there. Maybe he heard some of the trade rumors about him and PJ Washington. And maybe he was like, I kind of want to stay here. And so, maybe it was some of that too, but it does seem like he's found some kind of a corner. He's one of those, I keep comparing him to Andre Iguodala. He's not that level of player, obviously, yet in his career, but like a Swiss Army knife can do a whole bunch of different things. And it takes some of those players a while to figure it out because you got to be so smart, so intelligent, and know have such a great feel for the game that you can fill in all those little gaps. And so I always thought it was going to take Josh Green a little bit longer. And he was a freshman coming out of Arizona. So like a one and done guy that was going to take a while, that had a skill set that was going to take a while. And so here we are.
We'll be back with more of Inside the Mavs with Nick Angstadt right after this break as we hear a word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description. So let's get into it as we are just a couple of days away from the NBA trade deadline. The Mavericks have been connected to a lot of different names around the league. The latest reporting that we have from Mark Stein of Substack detailing how the Mavericks and the Bucks have been in exploratory discussions around Bobby Portis and Grant Williams being traded for one another. Now, Stein updated that particular report saying that, Milwaukee would be unwilling to swap Portis and Williams straight up for one another. So meaning a simple 1-for-1 trade construction would likely have to be expanded to include other players to advance these talks going forward, which it does make sense that if you're Milwaukee, while, yeah, you may like Grant Williams and what he could bring, Portis has been part of a championship team, and they know what they're going to get from him night after night, and making a move for him, you would have to make it, I'm sure, a little bit more enticing for them to move on from Portis. But where I want to stop on this one real quick is the idea that Grant Williams already being talked about as a guy that could be on the move, which I think, and I said it on my last episode, that this may, if he has to get moved, it may be the most disappointing acquisition of the Nico Harrison era if you've got to pull the plug, not even before the All-Star break, to move on for a guy that you thought coming in could elevate his role and be part of a team that could help you be better defensively in that way.
No, solid disagree. The JaVale McGee experience will always pass this. To bring a guy in like that, sign him for multiple years with a player option, say he's going to start, and then for him to be benched in within 10 games. I mean, it was clear to us even before then that he wasn't going to be right for it, but that, and then for him to not basically play, and then they have to, get rid of him and they stretch the contract. That one's pretty bad. Grant Williams has at least brought some things here and there, and he's 25, so you can still, you can talk yourself into, well, he's just got to adjust, and maybe it's a year of adjustment for him, and then next year he'll come in and know what he needs to do. He also has mentioned that he came in overweight, and then he also there's been some weird things about he's had injuries here and there that he's trying to play through, and so maybe there's something with that. Like there's all kinds of what ifs with Grant Williams. There was no what ifs with JaVale McGee. That was the one. No, it was just done. That was the worst one. But I don't know. We'll see with Grant Williams. But with this Bobby Portis thing, like you get bigger, you get a little older because Bobby Portis is 28. I think he's about to be 29. And Grant Williams is 25. You lose some 3-point shooting, but Bobby Portis 38% 3-point shooter throughout his career, like on 3 attempts a game, which is not terrible. You can play Bobby Portis with Lively. You can play Bobby Portis as a center, so you gain some flexibility there. If Maxey had not had these couple games recently where he looks pretty good, I would say you've got to do this because you have to take a step forward with the big man group. Like you can't just keep playing this, and they need to change maybe some of the style of how they play, and Portis could help that. But I don't know if it depends on what it would take, because that addendum on Mark Stein's report, it would take extra stuff. I want to know what the extra stuff is.
Yeah, I would want to know what that is too. But on the surface, the idea of Bobby Portis as part of this lineup, as you mentioned, you get bigger, you get some rebounding, decent 3-point shooter that can help you stretch the floor a little bit as well. But at the same time, we've seen how this team has gone so far this year. When Derek Lively is on the floor, there's a major difference both offensively and defensively in terms of the presence that he brings. When he is off the floor, there is no telling what you're going to get from, at times, Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber. Rashawn Holmes has been sparingly used so far this year, and there's really nothing behind him, if you're Lively, that you feel good about, if you're Jason Kidd, about what you can do to present size to teams. And we've seen how teams have been able to take advantage of that. When Lively is not on the floor, there is free open lanes for guys to be able to get to the basket because there is no shot deterrence there, or even the threat of deterrence at the basket when Lively is not on the floor. Portis, I don't know how much of that he would bring, but at least he would be another bigger body that could provide you at least some measure of rebounding, which is something this team has always needed, it feels like.
The one thing, though, is Grant Williams was supposed to come in to be like this sharpshooter, like a guaranteed, okay, we know that if we get him the ball, he can put up a shot and hit it, and that's kind of been not the case so far this season. So if the Mavs think that he can come around and like maybe get some of that back and be better next year, be more in shape next year, all that, then I don't know. I think I would stick with Grant Williams over Bobby Portis, even though you do get bigger. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't know what defensively Bobby Portis is bringing. I know you can close a game with Grant Williams if he gets to his like what he's supposed to be. I don't know that you can close a game with Bobby Portis the way that like with Lively and all that, like and having the right group around him. So I'm not sure about that. Yeah,
because Portis is an answer. I don't know if he's exactly the answer that you're looking for that would need to move this team forward in that way. Because even with the way the trade market, it feels like is shaping up, there isn't a lot of quote unquote needle movers, if you will. And the ones that have already been, deemed such have been moved when it comes to Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby playing terrific basketball for New York right now. So even for the Mavericks, if they do make a move, is there a guy based on what we know, whether it be who the Mavericks may connect to, whether it be Kyle Kuzma, Andrew Wiggins, PJ Washington? Is there a potential needle mover, even with the limited trade market that's available out there in your mind, that you would want to see the Mavericks make a move for?
Yeah, I've been in on Kuzma for a while on my, on Locked On Mavs. I've been talking about how the Mavs, they need that third guy. They need the third heat, right? It's the Tracy Morgan, like, I am the third heat. Like they need that extra guy. Tim has not been that. They need to move off of Tim and get somebody to replace that scoring. Tim's defense is just so detrimental at times. His decision making has been so detrimental at times, and then he'll bring you back from the dead with his 3-point shooting. But can we just not be brought back from the dead? Like, let's not die in the first place. It's not all on him, obviously, but like I'm ready for the Mavericks to move out of this era of like always having to die. A couple of things with Kuzma. He's 28. His contract is descending. He'll probably be a little bit more expensive than what the Mavericks would want to pay. The Wizards have leverage because they don't really care about this season, and he's signed for a couple years, so they can wait until the offseason and make that move. Kuzma's 3-point shooting is not the greatest. He's like a 36, 37% catch and shoot guy when he was playing with LeBron. I'm not going to compare his Wizards numbers to his numbers actually playing with a real point guard, but the Mavs need to get away from the live or die by the three anyway. So a 20-point per game scorer that doesn't rely on the 3-point shot is something that appeals to me for the Mavericks. And so if you can do that, if you can get that going and get Kyle Kuzma, it doesn't push your defense forward, but he doesn't hold it back either. And so I'd rather take that step forward if you can make that happen.
Yeah, I think the inconsistency that you'll get with Tim Hardaway at times, because, early on in the season, he was fantastic. Knocking down 3-pointers. We were all talking about him as a legitimate 6-man of the year candidate, the way that he was playing, averaging 17, 18 points per game. I think back to the Pelicans game that him and Kyrie both went off for over 40 points in that game. And I'm like, wow, that was fun. That Tim Hardaway experience, that was really fun that day.
Yeah, but then what about last night? Over
exactly.
8?
Yeah. That's the part where you get the good version of Tim Hardaway Jr. of the experience, and then you have the absolute other end of the spectrum when it comes to the THJ experience. And I think for a lot of Mavs fans and folks who cover this team, maybe it's time to get off that seesaw a little bit when it comes to what his experience is on a night-to-night basis. But that's up to the Mavericks to decide based off of what they have and what they want to move. But you're right on Kuzma. The part that interests me about him is, can he find some of that defense that he was playing when they won the championship in the bubble with the Los Angeles Lakers? Because he presents a lot of size at 6'8", 6'9", can put the ball on the floor and take it to the basket. But defensively, could the Mavericks find something to get out of him there? And Jason Kidd, who knows the player obviously very well from being an assistant coach with them when he was with the Los Angeles Lakers, I wonder what that means. And for folks who I've talked to, understanding that Kuzma apparently is a big fan of Jason Kidd as, head coach, and what that could mean if he were to be moved, if the Wizards were able to make or wanted to part with him in that way.
It would be a good fit in a lot of different ways like that. How would he be as the third guy? We've kind of already seen that with him playing with LeBron and Anthony Davis, but now he's gone to the Wizards and been essentially the first option for them. Has he gotten really comfortable doing that? Would he be willing to go back to that role? But like you said, he already knows Jason Kidd. He knows his style, likes it. And so he checks so many different boxes that the Mavericks need right now. He doesn't add an elite defender to their group, but I just think that they need to take a step forward talent wise. You look at the mid level, like the mid tier of all their contracts, the Tim Hardaways, the Maxi Kleber, the I guess Josh Green now, the Grant Williams, and they've all kind of underperformed in different ways, and so they need somebody to push them up, and especially all the games that Kyrie misses. Kuzma then all of a sudden becomes your second option, and that's much better than whatever the Mavericks have right now, and that seems to happen a lot.
Speaking of third options, this name continues to pop up, and we've seen his name over the last couple of days, whether it be Shams Charania of The Athletic or Tim McMahon of ESPN. McMahon going into much greater detail about it on his appearance with Zach Lowe on the Low Post podcast about Andrew Wiggins. Now, Mavericks fans, don't necessarily, like Andrew Wiggins because, during that Western Conference Finals appearance that they had against the Warriors, Andrew Wiggins was putting in work and defensively was playing pretty well, but he was also at the highest peak in terms of his offensive game as well. And I wonder if you're the Mavericks, and McMahon detailing this a little bit as well, saying that, the Mavericks could be in a situation where there are deals that could be made that they may be able to feel like they can revitalize Andrew Wiggins' career as a member of the Mavericks, to which I think that's interesting because he's playing right now for Steve Kerr, and you've watched the Warriors a little bit. They've kind of unlocked this little thing with Jonathan Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins alongside with Draymond Green. Unfortunately, Klay Thompson's getting benched these days when it comes to fourth quarters now.
Oh, that was a rough watch last night with him post game talking about how he's fallen off as a player and accepting that. Oof, that was rough.
That would
hit you.
And honestly, though, some ways, real quick, I appreciate the honesty because a lot of players wouldn't be able to admit that. So for Klay Thompson to be like, look, man, this is an honest assessment of who I am as a player. That's rough, but damn, I appreciate the honesty in terms of what you feel like you are. But for Wiggins, he's in the first year of a massive extension. I'm sure the Warriors thought when they signed it, was like, okay, this would be a pretty nice deal for us because, we still got Clay, we still got Steph, we still got Draymond, but that thing really hasn't turned around since they won their NBA, championship to be able to keep up the same level, I should say. Are you in on taking the risk on Wiggins, knowing what you saw from him a couple of years ago, but really hasn't been the same player since that NBA championship run?
It's more about the risk knowing what I've seen the last 2 years.
Yeah.
the risk with him, right? Because he took some time off last year, for the reported issue was, his father's health. And so we don't really know about that situation, but he was off a long time. And then this season, he just hasn't played that well. Recently, like last couple of weeks or so, he's had some good games, some good showings, and shot the ball a little bit better. But yeah, he would cost the least. He would cost a lot less. The problem is he costs a lot less asset-wise in a trade, but more in a contract. He's making more than Kuzma. His deal is actually flipped, reversed when it comes to Kuzma. Kuzma's is descending, starts at 25, ends at 14, or ends at 19. Wiggins starts at like 25 and ends at 30.
Yep.
And so it's going up, even though the cap will go up and like, all right, you can stomach that a little bit. If it doesn't work and he becomes another, I don't know, put him in the line of all the Grant Williams, the Christian Woods, the Josh Richardsons, put him in the line of all the guys that haven't worked for Dallas. And I think every team has a list of guys like that. Wiggins is a guy like that for the Warriors right now. List of guys. Like if he doesn't work, that's a big number to try and move off of and to try and fix. Like, that's tough. But he could just need a change of scenery. I mean, it worked for him when he left Minnesota to go to the Warriors the first time. Like that was a change of scenery he needed, and maybe it's just time. He's been there for what, like this is his 5th season, so he could need I just don't know. Like this is where you'd need like DK or somebody that's like a sports psychologist to go and like talk to Wiggins and just try and figure out where his head is at, what he thinks the issue has been with his his game this season. The Warriors are also just in a really weird place. Like they're declining. We talked about the Klay Thompson thing. The Draymond thing has been really weird for them. And so maybe it's just a combination of he's in this weird situation that you got the Kuminga, I guess, quote unquote drama with Steve Kerr, not playing him, then playing him, and then him playing really well and all that. You've got, it just is a weird situation. The team's not playing that well. They've had some injuries. And so maybe he just needs to change the scenery, and maybe he just needs some more open shots. Luka can get him those open shots, and he is going to be the cheapest one. And so if the Mavs if it's beneficial for the Mavs, contract and asset wise, I think I would go for it. I think if I'm the Mavs, I would go for it. But you're taking a risk.
I mean, it tests that philosophy on buying low on a player that's got potentially a high ceiling, and we've seen what Wiggins has been when he's been at his best. And he's a guy that can defend in multiple positions, can get out in transition, can knock down some 3-pointers as well. Like the highest levels of what Andrew Wiggins has been in his career, like we saw a couple of years ago, are really, really good. And it really, again, as I mentioned, tests that, buy low, high risk type reward type of deal that the Mavericks seem to be, willing to do. I mean, they did it when they traded for Kristaps Porzingis. They traded for him.
Add
they
him
gave
to the
up,
list.
Yeah, exactly. The Porzingis to the list. But the Kyrie Irving situation, a little bit different because of the situation that he was dealing with in Brooklyn. But as we mentioned, for him, he was a guy that you could buy a little bit lower on based on what normally you would get for Kyrie Irving if it was a normal situation for him. So maybe Wiggins kind of falls in line with some of that. A guy that's a little bit of, and I don't like using these types of terms when it comes to players, but I will in this case because the metaphor works. He's a distressed asset in this case. So, maybe you can.
His 3-point percentage is definitely distressed. That's for sure.
There's a lot of things distressed about, Andrew Wiggins. So maybe this falls in line with the Nico Harrison model of, hey, let's make a move that we feel like we can buy low on, and maybe it works out for us. The question is, with the Warriors, if you're the Warriors, do you have to attach something to Wiggins to get him out of there? Because right now he isn't necessarily valued as much as he would have been a couple of years ago.
And that's what I mean by if it's beneficial asset-wise. If the Mavs get a couple seconds or something out of it, and you're like, okay, well, we get something beneficial from this, then it makes a little bit more sense. The thing about what you said earlier, isn't that what's gotten the Mavericks in some of these issues right that they're in right now? The bargain basement of, all right, we're getting Kyrie. He's, he was a distressed asset too because he went for less than what he normally would go. And the injuries have really caught up. Now, they've been some freak injuries and things with Dwight Powell falling on his foot, but he did have feet issues before that. The thumb thing is a freak injury. So some of these have been freak injuries, but he does struggle with injuries and struggles to play. Porzingis, same thing. And so the Mavericks doing this again, you bring back Dante Exum, and then all of a sudden Exum plays really well, and you're like, well, Dante, what's the reason why Dante Exum didn't really make it in the NBA? Because of the injuries and because he keeps going down. And so if you just keep doing this, the good thing is Andrew Wiggins will play. If he doesn't get injured that much, played 73 games 2 years ago. Last year was out because of the family issue, but he's played 82 games like 3 times in his career, almost 4. So it's like, all right, well, at least he'll play. He can get his own shot too. Like a lot of the Wiggins things, a lot of the Kuzma things, Wiggins can do as well. Former number 1 pick, can get his own shot, has been a 20-point per game scorer, a couple times in his career. And so like he fits the mold of all those things that I mentioned earlier. I think he's a better defender than Kuzma as well.
Agreed.
And so he's just less consistent. And is that what the Mavericks want? Can we get some consistency up in here? Because it just seems like every player they bring in, they just need to work on consistency. Well,
yeah. And look, and this will be another conversation down the road, but this is part of the reason why over the years, watching this team light, picks on fire, whether it be, trading a 2nd-round pick for a James Johnson at one point, or trading a 2nd-rounder for a JJ Redick.
The dogs are here.
You remember that?
I'll never forget that airplane video. Josh Richardson and James Johnson flying. The dogs are coming.
But I mean, look, God. They lit 2nd-round picks on fire. James Johnson, JJ Redick, who was here for about 30 seconds.
That was tough.
Yeah, so this team has kind of put themselves in position where, you don't necessarily have the, the capital or whatever to be able to make some of the moves that you may want to make given some of the needs that you have, which gets me to a guy like PJ Washington in Charlotte, because a guy who has signed an extension before the season has been playing really well. It's funny because we were talking about Josh Green a little bit earlier. It's funny how the timing of Josh Green and PJ Washington and the way they've been playing has really coincided with the NBA trade deadline, because both of them have been playing extremely well over the last couple of weeks. Washington, I think, had a 43-point game last week. Like he has been playing really well for them. Where are you with PJ Washington, a guy that's 6'7", 6'8", got a wingspan of 7'2", knows the DFW area well, and someone in Charlotte where they're lighting their season on fire right now based off of what's going on. They're trying to reroute.
It's not on fire. It's business as usual over there. You can't light something on fire if it's been on fire, right?
Touche. But they're trying to reroute Kyle Lowry somewhere. Gordon Hayward, may be a potential buyout candidate if they decide to. If not, they may move him as well. But for PJ Washington, he seems like a guy that would be a really good fit for the Mavericks as well. Where are you with him?
Yeah, PJ and Kuz, these are the two that I've been on that I say, if you can get them, go get them, because they would add to this team and on a foundational level. PJ adds more defensively. He's 6'7", so he looks undersized, but he's got a 7'2" wingspan, really, really tall standing reach. Like that's a big difference for a team. Look at what Lively can do compared to what Dwight Powell can do. That's the difference a wingspan can make, basically, and a couple inches on height. And so PJ also, there's been tons of reports about how he approaches the game, how he plays the game, how professional he is. I'm like, that sounds like a Mavericks player that the Mavs want to bring in. Like they want to bring those type of guys that add to the culture, that don't take things off the table. And PJ Washington, I don't think is a player that takes anything off the table. He can score, like you said. He's had a 43-point game and like 3 or 4 20-point games over the last couple of weeks here, and so he can score a little bit here and there. He's not going to give you a distinct skill, but he just adds the baseline of talent. And it's the Grant Williams thing, but it could work, right? Like they're basically just like,
he's only 25.
Let's try again. It's the same mold of a player. It's a 6'6", 6'7", big body guy that can play a small ball 5, but definitely play the 4, can defend a little bit, can shoot the 3 a little bit, can score a little bit. Like, all right, let's try this again. That version of what we thought the player of Grant Williams would be, but let's make it work. Like, let's try. And if they don't have to give up too much for him, like the report is that they have to give up Josh Green, which I don't know, that it feels like you're upgrading. It's a little bit of an upgrade, but if the Mavs have to throw anything else in, then all of a sudden it's like in a vacuum, not that great of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a lateral move if they have to do that. But if you don't have to give up too much for him and like player wise, then he adds to your talent pool. And I think that helps the Mavericks because they just need it. They need that mid-tier level player to be better.
Yeah, Washington intrigues me because he's a guy, like I mentioned, knows the area well, trains in DFW during the offseason.
Does that matter? Do we care about that?
Okay, so I'm someone who talks about, other sports besides basketball. I've always been of the opinion that I feel like a guy or a girl who comes back to their hometown is willing to give that much more because they don't want to embarrass themselves in front of their hometown friends and family, that kind of thing.
So or they get distracted because there's just all these people coming out of the woodwork that they knew before.
There is some of that as well, but I feel like you would want to put on well for your home city and your hometown. And I feel like you would get, a better version of that particular player knowing what they could bring, in that way. So I feel like Washington would feel comfortable here, if nothing else. And that's the other part too. Feeling comfortable in a place that can help you be better as a player, in my mind, based off of what, they could be. So Washington intrigues me for not just his skill set, but I think there would be an air of comfortability for him immediately coming to Dallas. And if you're
fit really well.
Yeah, he would fit exactly based on what they need. And before we finish up today, so what are you willing to part with? We talked about Kuzma, we've talked about Washington, we've talked about, Andrew Wiggins as well, some of these other guys. What are you willing to part with to make some of this happen based on their roster construction and what the Mavericks have available from a capital standpoint?
I think I would give up the first round pick for Wiggins for Kuzma, and then probably for PJ Washington too. I would hope that you wouldn't have to for him. You just need more foundational pieces, and you need more guarantees, guys on contracts that are both descending. PJ Washington's contract is descending too. It starts at $16 million, I think goes to 14 in year 3. And so like those are positive like players, assets, like and all that. You could flip them later if you needed to. And so I think I would do that because I've been on the camp, save the first round pick for the summer so that you have 3. But then what are you getting with 3 first-round picks this summer? It's like I looked around the landscape of the league, and sometimes you just don't know. You don't know that an OG Anunoby is going to be available or a Pascal Siakam is going to be available. The problem is there's just not many players that fit that level that could be a third guy and all that. And these are 2 that could do that. And like, all right, if you could get a Kuzma and a PJ Washington, and then add one more piece this summer, maybe that helps you more than just saving for like a player that would cost 3 first-round picks in the summer. You could go either way with it on me. But if they don't make the move now, here's the thing: if you don't make a move now, you have to this summer. Like you literally box yourself into a corner, because if you don't make a move in the summer, then you literally didn't take any steps forward. You're just betting on health, and it's just not going to work out for you.
Yeah, and as much as I love Dorian Finney-Smith, I'm sorry, I'm not giving up 2 first-round picks for you. I can't do it.
Sorry, Doe. Love you. Love you. Love Peanut and the horse, but yeah, sorry, bud.
I can't do it. But the NBA trade deadline is on February the 8th. We will see if the Mavericks are able to decide to make a move as they continue their East Coast road trip before they finish up before the All-Star break. They get to see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Washington Wizards and the Spurs before they end their quote-unquote first half of the season after they get done with their East Coast trip. So who knows? Kyle Kuzma may be a Maverick by the time,
they take on Washington. I'm down for it.
Nick, tell the folks so they can find you. What you got going on, man?
Yeah, at Nick Van Exit on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And then Locked On Mavs all over the place.
I joined the dark side recently with TikTok, so
now they know where you live. Now they know what you do. They know your interests. They know all of it.
Which means I need to go delete TikTok right now. No,
they already got it. They already downloaded it.
They already got it.
They saved it. There's a server somewhere. It's out there.
That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, thank Nick Angstadt of Locked On Mavericks for joining me here and coming to the other side, to the alternative universe for today's episode. Really appreciate you hanging out with us today. You can download and subscribe to the Inside the Mavs podcast wherever you get podcasts for free. Like and comment on this video and subscribe to my channel here at Kevin Gray Sports. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Peace.